In the previous episode, Matt used his ancestors' memories to find a way to kill Cade. In order to save Stefan from going to hell, Damon handed Ethan's journal over to Cade. When Matt rang the Maxwell bell, it opened a breach to hell, allowing Kai to escape back to the mortal world and present Elena's body to Cade. Cade forced Damon to choose between the deaths of Elena and Stefan. Damon chose to sacrifice himself. While Bonnie engaged in a battle of psychic powers with Cade to save Damon, Stefan used a dagger to kill Cade. After the Salvatore brothers joined forces to defeat the ruler of Hell, Bonnie trapped Kai in another prison world. But Kai revealed to Bonnie that Hell hadn't been destroyed, and that Katherine had become its new master. Katherine is now the true queen of Hell. In fact, when Matt rang the Maxwell bell, Katherine had already returned to the mortal world, but she was more patient than Kai. She watched the Salvatore brothers outwit Cade and waited for the perfect moment to take advantage of their victory. Last night, a murder occurred in the town. Matt found the perpetrator on the security camera to be a woman, but the lighting was too dark to see her face. Matt's father, Peter, returned to town and brought his wife, Kelly, along with him. Matt was stunned, as it had been 4 years since he last saw his mother. What a pair of incompetent parents. But Matt had no time to reminisce with his family. Dealing with the Queen of Hell, Katherine, was the priority. The group gathered to devise a plan. Katherine was naturally suspicious and cunning. If she was refusing to show herself, it likely meant she was planning something. They couldn't afford to sit and wait. The ashen dagger that killed Cade was forged from his ashes. Perhaps they could make another one using the same method. When Katherine possessed Elena, her body had been set ablaze by the travelers, and her bones were kept in an ancient tomb. They also needed a blacksmith. Matt's father, being a blacksmith, could handle the forging. As for luring Katherine out, Damon had a promising idea. Katherine was deeply obsessed with Stefan, so if Stefan did something that made her jealous, she would be unable to resist revealing herself.
We shove Stefan's happiness in her face. We throw the one party Katherine would never miss. Who doesn't love a wedding?
Caroline had originally planned a grand wedding, but in order to cooperate with Damon's plan, she had no choice but to turn the wedding into a battlefield. On the other side, the brothers found Katherine's skeleton in the tomb, and Damon couldn't resist toying with it for a moment. While Stefan gathered the bones, Damon took a bottle of wine out of his bag, sort of throwing a bachelor party for his younger brother. At the bar, Matt questioned his mother's sudden return. Kelly claimed she missed her family, tears welling up in her eyes at the sentiment. Matt thought she was going to freshen up in the restroom, unaware that black blood was streaming from her mouth and nose, a sight that left a nearby woman in shock. Kelly explained that it was a side effect of returning from hell.
Short-term remedy.
At dusk, Damon carried his drunk brother back to the mansion. Since Stefan became human again, his tolerance for alcohol had declined, so Damon invited Caroline to have a drink with him. After tomorrow, they would all be family. The mood turned somber as Damon and Caroline reminisced about Sheriff Forbes. Caroline told Damon that tomorrow's wedding would be like a battlefield, and Alaric wasn't planning to let their daughters attend. Bonnie still hadn't forgiven Stefan and wouldn't be attending. To comfort Caroline, Damon wrapped Elena's necklace around her hand, symbolizing Elena's presence alongside her. Elsewhere, Enzo's spirit appeared to Bonnie to persuade her. He reminded her that Stefan had already died when he was injected with the cure, and that the real Stefan had come back. Plus, Caroline was her best friend, and Bonnie should be there for her wedding.
Share in her happiness, it won't negate ours.
No one noticed that gas canisters had been placed at the wedding venue during the preparations. The next morning, Caroline discovered a multitude of gifts in her bedroom. Among them was a headpiece from Bonnie and a delicate jade necklace. Though the necklace was unsigned, Caroline assumed it was from Stefan. Unexpectedly, Alaric brought his 2 daughters over. He didn't want Caroline to have any regrets. Alaric's emotions were conflicted. He admitted that he wouldn't be attending the wedding, as it was hard for him to watch the mother of his children marry another man. While Caroline was talking to the twins, she saw Bonnie arriving for the wedding, which filled her with immense joy. Meanwhile, Stefan slipped Katherine's ashen dagger into his pocket. Damon thoughtfully adjusted his brother's tie and promised Stefan that he wouldn't let Katherine hurt him. Stefan, in turn, wished that one day his brother would find the life he truly desired. Before the ceremony began, Kelly approached her husband Peter to inquire about the whereabouts of the ashen dagger. When she found out that Peter had already given the ashen dagger to Stefan, she was so furious that she spat out a mouthful of black blood. Concerned, Peter stepped closer to check on her, only for Kelly to slit his throat with a dagger. When Matt arrived at the wedding, he noticed his father was missing, but his mother quickly made up a lie to cover it up. A figure appeared above, overlooking the wedding scene. She sent Kelly a text message. The game has begun. Stefan smiled as he watched his beloved bride, Caroline, walking toward him. Then, Stefan noticed the pendant around Caroline's neck, and a frown crossed his face. Caroline assumed he was the one who had given it to her, but Stefan explained that it was Katherine's necklace. This romantic wedding was fraught with hidden dangers. To lure Katherine out, the officiant, Damon, pulled out all the stops. He began by welcoming the guests and praising Caroline and Stefan as a perfect match.
If anyone has any objections to this union, please speak now or forever hold your peace.
Damon was hoping that Katherine would crash the wedding, but instead, the scene was met with complete silence. Disappointed, Damon had no choice but to continue. When it came time to exchange vows, neither Caroline nor Stefan was prepared, as they hadn't anticipated that Katherine would remain so patient. With no other choice, Caroline and Stefan improvised. Stefan's voice was full of emotion as he confessed that every time he fell into darkness, Caroline was the one who pulled him back. She was his conscience. Caroline, tears of joy in her eyes, told Stefan that a part of her had fallen in love with him the moment they first met. In the first episode of Season 1, when Stefan faced Caroline's relentless pursuit, he had said that being together was impossible for them. They exchanged rings, and with Damon's pronouncement, they were officially married. All the guests stood up and applauded, and the wedding went very smoothly. Even by the time of the evening reception, Katherine still hadn't appeared, leaving Damon puzzled. Unbeknownst to everyone, Kelly had thrown the hidden gas canisters into the fireplace and opened the gas valves. Matt hadn't seen his father all day, and when he called his phone, he found him gravely injured in the bushes.
Look, Katherine didn't kill you.
Katherine didn't do this.
The reception was held in the yard, and just as Damon was making a toast, Kelly seized the microphone. She mocked Caroline for causing her mother's death. Sensing trouble, Damon rushed to compel Kelly, only to find that it had no effect. Kelly went on to hint that the Salvatore brothers were not human and had caused the death of her daughter Vicky. Matt, now aware of the truth, arrived just as his mother raged against the indifference of the townspeople.
You never knew I was dead. Now, the only one who gave a damn about me was Katherine. She saw how I was suffering in hell.
Where's she?
Kelly admitted she didn't know where Katherine was. Her mission was to detonate the castle. Bonnie and the twins were inside the castle, and Caroline rushed to save them, but it was too late. The gas canisters had already been detonated. In the moment of crisis, with Enzo's guidance, Bonnie shared her magic with the twins. Together, they chanted a spell that allowed them to move safely through the flames. Without the need for torture, Kelly confessed everything. This was all at Katherine's behest.
She's gonna burn down Mystic Falls with Hellfire tonight.
Matt immediately objected, pointing out that only he and his father could ring the Maxwell bell to unleash Hellfire, so Katherine shouldn't have had an opportunity. Kelly reminded him that there was another person qualified to ring the Maxwell bell. Vicky, long dead, appeared at the bell tower, and under Katherine's orders, she rang the Maxwell bell. When the Maxwell bell rang, it made Bonnie's already weakened state even worse, causing her heartbeat to stop. Stefan rushed to perform first aid. Bonnie's soul entered a peaceful forest, where she saw Elena sleeping. Elena woke up with a mix of surprise and joy, and the two friends embraced each other. Then Elena thought of something, and her face became very ugly. Did this mean Bonnie had died? Elena would rather stay asleep than see Bonnie's life cut short. But Bonnie felt ready. She was finally at peace with reuniting with Enzo. At that moment, Enzo's spirit appeared in the forest. With their encouragement, Bonnie, clinging to life, came back to consciousness. In the bell tower, Damon arrived just as Vicky rang the Maxwell bell a second time. He threw Vicky from the tower, shattering her body on the ground below. Moments later, Matt arrived at the scene. As Matt angrily confronted Damon, Vicky unexpectedly appeared in the bell tower again. This time, Damon snapped her neck, but Vicky stood up again as if nothing had happened. Katherine, now the new ruler of Hell, had granted Vicky immortality. Damon was powerless against Vicky, so he could only rely on Matt, hoping he could convince her. Vicky told her brother that Katherine had ordered her to ring the bell every 5 minutes, and when the 12th toll struck, Hellfire would consume the town. Matt now had only 1 hour to evacuate the townspeople.
Activate the evacuation protocols. Gas leak. Yeah, again.
Damon and the others felt a deep sense of defeat and resigned themselves to returning home to pack their belongings. This time it was Katherine who won completely. Back at the mansion, the Salvatore brothers discovered that Elena's coffin had been opened. A realization struck Stefan. Earlier, Bonnie's heart had stopped. Could it mean that Elena had already awakened? Suddenly, a faint voice called out behind Damon. He turned and saw his beloved Elena, awake and alive. It was a bittersweet twist of fate. Being able to reunite with Elena made losing their home no longer important. Damon embraced Elena with excitement. It was yet another classic Katherine trick. Always impossible to fully guard against. Luckily, Damon could always see through her tricks. After being trapped in hell for so many years, Katherine had plenty she wanted to say to the Salvatore brothers. For instance, it was she who had influenced Cade to choose the Salvatore brothers as Hell's emissaries. Cade was completely manipulated by Katherine and ultimately met his end at the hands of the Salvatore brothers. It was all part of her grand plan. But Damon only cared about one thing: the location of Elena's body. Katherine's eyes glimmered with sly intent as she proposed a wager. When the Hellfire descended, one of the Salvatore brothers would surely choose to die with Elena. Stefan drove the ashen dagger into Katherine's heart, but unlike Cade, she didn't turn to ash. The Salvatore brothers did not have time to dwell on this issue. Their priority was finding Elena's body. They split up to search, and Stefan eventually found Elena in the school's boiler room. However, a boundary spell was in place. Stefan could move freely, but Elena was trapped inside. It was yet another of Katherine's traps. Meanwhile, Damon, searching the forest, was intercepted by Katherine. Her situation was different from Cade's. The ashen dagger could only send her to hell, but she could return to the mortal world whenever she wanted. Unable to stand her incessant talking, Damon drove the dagger through Katherine's heart once more. At the armory, Alaric was preparing to leave when Bonnie discovered an abandoned proposal. Alaric explained that it was a last-ditch plan that, in theory, could destroy Cade's hell but required immense energy to reverse the Hellfire's flow. Determined to fight, Bonnie decided to stay. She had a plan that could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Bonnie reached out to Stefan, outlining her strategy. While she reversed the Hellfire to destroy Hell, someone needed to trap Katherine in the tunnels, as the Hellfire would pass through and funnel back into Hell. When Katherine revived, she found that Damon had brought her into the tunnels. After Damon revealed Bonnie's plan, Katherine scoffed. 200 years ago, the full power of the Bennett coven barely managed to hold back the Hellfire. How could Bonnie possibly destroy Hell alone? But Damon was unwavering in his belief that Bonnie could do it.
KP.
You're bluffing.
No, he's not. And neither am I.
I got this handled, bro. You need to get out of these tunnels.
I'm not the one who's gonna get out of here, Damon. You are.
There had to be a martyr, and the brothers both wanted to stay. Katherine finally showed signs of panic. "You all discuss it clearly first. I'll leave you to it," she said, trying to slip away. Damon threw the ashen dagger, knocking her down. Stefan saw this as his chance for redemption. Damon refused to allow it, reminding Stefan that he had just gotten married and that Caroline was waiting for him to return and fulfill his role as her husband. Facing Stefan's pleading, Damon's eyes filled with tears as he pretended to agree.
You are human, which is why I can do this. Go.
No, Damon,
We're
don't.
gonna walk out of these tunnels. And you are not gonna stop until my death breaks the compulsion. Because I am the big brother.
The series finale of the Vampire Diaries had finally arrived. Once a wildly popular show, few had stayed until the end, and the conclusion left countless fans heartbroken. Damon is prepared to die with Katherine. He compelled Stefan to leave the town. Meanwhile, the last group of townspeople evacuated. Sheriff Matt prepared to stay and face the end with his town, only to be joined by his father, who chose to remain as well. The father and son climbed the bell tower together to check on Vicky. The Maxwell bell had already been awakened, and ringing it once more would summon the Hellfire. Vicky was touched by her father's and brother's selfless companionship, but she could not stop ringing the bell. The family braced for the end together. Alaric and Caroline, who have fled, are both in silence. They are concerned about the safety of their companions. At the armory, Bonnie stood alone, quietly gathering her power. It was the calm before the storm. Caroline, unable to suppress her longing, told Alaric to stop the car. She frantically tried to call Stefan, terrified that this might be their final goodbye, but Stefan didn't answer. As Vicky struck the Maxwell bell one last time, Hellfire burst forth. At the same moment, Bonnie, far away in the armory, cast her spell from a distance. Not only did she halt the spread of the Hellfire, but she also redirected it, channeling it through the town's tunnels toward the armory. Damon and Katherine, hiding in the secret chamber, witnessed the sheer power of the Hellfire. The moment Bonnie funneled the Hellfire back into hell, Katherine would meet her end. Stefan, who has been hypnotized, suddenly wakes up. He immediately turned and ran toward the tunnels. Hellfire roared through the passageways, and Bonnie focused all her energy on pushing it back into hell. The fate of the town rested solely on her shoulders. As the Hellfire drew closer, even Bonnie, using all her strength, could not stop the onslaught of the Hellfire. At this time, Enzo's spirit appeared, which greatly encouraged Bonnie. Suddenly, an aged hand grasped hers. It was the spirit of her grandmother. Not only that, but the spirits of all the Bennett family witches appeared 200 years ago. They used their own flesh and blood to block the Hellfire. Now their spirits returned to aid Bonnie in destroying hell once and for all. Bolstered by the presence of her ancestors, Bonnie's confidence soared, and together they repelled the Hellfire. Meanwhile, in the tunnels, Damon held Katherine tightly as they awaited the arrival of the Hellfire. Suddenly, Stefan rushed back. He injected a vial of blood into Damon, causing him to weaken instantly. Stefan then took his brother's place, gripping Katherine tightly. Although Katherine was obsessed with Stefan, her greatest love was herself. She didn't want to die. The Hellfire was channeled back into the Maxwell bell, unleashed by the power of the witch's ultimate strike. Cade's hell was destroyed, and Bonnie collapsed, unconscious from exhaustion. Elena's spirit wandered through the classroom and turned a corner, only to fall into Stefan's embrace, just as they had first met. Stefan told Elena that he had saved Damon, who was ready to sacrifice himself. It turned out that Stefan had already consumed verbena, so Damon was unable to hypnotize him. He pretended to leave in order to extract the antidote from his own body. This was his final gift to Damon, a way to atone for his past mistakes. Stefan believed that since he had led his brother into suffering, it was only right that he be the one to return Damon's happiness. Tears rolled down Elena's cheeks as she felt overwhelming sorrow. Stefan managed a small smile. Knowing he had one last wish left, he whispered something in Elena's ear, and after a heartfelt hug, he prepared to face his fate. Would his soul find peace? Stefan met his old friend Lexi, and even his beloved car was there. At last, he found his peace. After this battle, Bonnie's powers grew stronger. After much effort, she lifted Elena's sleeping curse, allowing her to awaken. In the family crypt, Damon erected a headstone for his brother.
You think it exists?
Peace.
The living could never truly know the answer, but Caroline firmly believed that Stefan had found his peace. Now turned human, Damon joked. After I die, hell might reopen. Elena and Bonnie also rushed over, and Damon couldn't believe it. He and Elena embraced and kissed passionately. Elena later shared Stefan's last message with Caroline.
One day, when you wake up, tell Caroline I heard her, and I will love her forever too.
Afterwards, the group held a simple funeral for Stefan. Damon removed his daylight ring and placed it on his brother's grave. They all walked away, ready to start their new chapter. The villagers built a bench in Matt's name to honor his contributions to the town. Seeing Matt getting better and better, Vicky and Tyler let go of their worries. Bonnie was preparing to travel the world with Enzo's soul. Alaric and Caroline created a supernatural school for their 2 daughters, and Damon donated his castle to be used as classrooms. Joe's soul watched from the side, feeling greatly comforted. Dorian continued as Alaric's assistant. Vampire hunter Jeremy was hired as a teacher. Caroline often reminisced about her late mother. Not long after the school opened, she received a generous donation and a letter from New Orleans. Elena pursued a career as a nurse after graduating and liked to write in her journal at Stefan's grave in her free time. Whenever a crow appeared to bother her, she knew Damon had come to visit.
Even after our long and happy life together, Damon is still worried he'll never see Stefan again, that he'll never find peace. But I know he's wrong, because peace exists. It lives in everything we hold dear.
As they walked, Damon suddenly disappeared. This is a metaphor. They spent a long and happy life together. Whether Damon found peace or not, Elena believed that this cozy house was her haven. Here, her parents and Aunt Jenna were present. Even John had returned. In the castle, the lonely Stefan stared blankly at the fireplace. He suddenly sensed something and hesitantly opened the door to check. A smile slowly blossomed on his face. Damon found peace. Damon and Stefan embraced each other in tears, and Stefan finally found his peace. Where the heart is at ease is home, and the 2 brothers are each other's true home. Thus concludes The Vampire Diaries. There's more exciting content on my homepage. Feel free to check it out.